of the dialog, select Application. In the main area of the dialog, select Single View Application, and then click Next. A new dialog appears that prompts you to name your app, and choose additional options for your project. Fill in the product name, company identifier, and class prefix fields. You can use the following values as product name, Hello World. Company identifier, your company identifier, if you have one. If you don't have a company identifier, you can use edu.self. For class prefix, use Hello World. Xcode uses the product name you entered to name your project and the app. Xcode uses the class prefix name to name the classes it creates for you. For example, Xcode automatically creates an app delegate class and names it Hello World App Delegate. If you enter a different value for the class prefix, then the app delegate class is named your class prefix name app delegate. To keep things simple, this tutorial assumes that you named your product Hello World and that you used Hello World for the class prefix value. In the device family pop-up menu, make sure that iPhone is chosen. Make sure that the Use Storyboards and Use Automatic Reference Counting options are selected and that the Include Unit Tests option is unselected. Click Next. Another dialog appears that allows you to specify where to save your project, specify a location for your project, leave the source control option unselected, and then click Create. Xcode opens your new project in a window called the Workspace window, which should look similar to this. Take a few moments to familiarize yourself with the Workspace window that Xcode opens for you. You'll use the buttons and areas identified in the window below throughout the rest of this tutorial. If the Utilities area in your Workspace window is already open, you can close it for now, because you won't need it until later in the tutorial. The rightmost view button controls the Utilities area. When the Utilities area is visible, the button looks like this. If necessary, click the rightmost view button to close the Utilities area. Even though you haven't yet written any code, you can build your app and run it in the simulator app that is included in Xcode. As its name implies, Simulator allows you to get an idea of how your app would look and behave if it were running on an iOS-based device. Make sure that the Scheme pop-up menu in the Xcode toolbar has Hello World iPhone 5.0 Simulator chosen. If the pop-up menu does not display that choice, open it and choose iPhone 5.0 Simulator from the menu. Click the Run button in the Xcode toolbar, or choose Product Run. Messages about the build process in the Activity Viewer, which is in the middle of the toolbar. After Xcode finishes building your project, Simulator should start automatically. You might have to wait a few seconds for Simulator to appear on top of the Workspace window. Because you specified an iPhone product rather than an iPad product, Simulator displays a window that looks like an iPhone. On the simulated iPhone screen, Simulator opens your app, which should look like this. Right now, your app is not very interesting. It simply displays a blank white screen. To understand where the white screen comes from, you need to learn about the objects in your code and how they work together to start the app. For now, quit Simulator. Make sure that you don't quit Xcode. When you run your app, Xcode might open the debug area at the bottom of the Workspace window. You won't use this pane in this tutorial, so you can close it to make more room in your window. Because you based your project on an Xcode template, much of the basic app environment is automatically set up when you run the app. For example, Xcode creates an application object which, among a few other things, establishes the run loop. A run loop registers input sources and enables the delivery of input events to your app. Most of this work is done by the UI application main function, which is supplied for you by the UI kit framework and is automatically called in your project's main M source file. The UI kit framework provides all the classes that an app needs to construct and manage its user interface. The UI kit framework is just one of many object-oriented frameworks provided by Cocoa Touch, which is the app environment for all iOS apps. Make sure the Project Navigator is open in the Navigator area. The Project Navigator displays all the files in your project. If the Project Navigator is not open, click the leftmost button in the Navigator selector bar. Open the Supporting Files folder in the Project Navigator by clicking the disclosure triangle next to it. Select Main M. Xcode opens the source file in the main editor area of the window, which should look similar to this. The auto-release pull statement supports the automatic reference counting (ARC) system. ARC provides automatic object lifetime management for your app, ensuring that objects remain in existence for as long as they're needed, and no longer. The call to UI application main creates an instance of the UI application class and an instance of the app delegate. In this tutorial, the app delegate is Hello World App Delegate, which is provided for you by the single view template. The main job of the app delegate is to provide the window into which your app's content is drawn. The app delegate can also perform some app configuration tasks before the app is displayed. Delegation is a design pattern in which one object acts on behalf of or in coordination with another object. In an iOS app, a window object provides a container for the app's visible content, helps deliver events to app objects, and helps the app respond to changes in the device's orientation. The window itself is invisible. The call to UI application main also scans the app's info plist file. The info plist file is a property list, that is, a structured list of key value pairs that contains information about the app such as its name and icon. Select Main Storyboard in the Project Navigator. Xcode opens the storyboard in the editor area. The area behind the storyboard objects, that is, the area that looks like graph paper, is called the canvas. When you open the default storyboard, your workspace window should look similar to this. A storyboard contains scenes and segs. A scene represents a view controller, and a seg represents a transition between two scenes. Because the single view template provides one view controller, the storyboard in your app contains one scene, and no segs. The arrow that points to the left side of the scene on the canvas is the initial scene indicator, which identifies the scene that should be loaded first when the app starts. Typically, the initial scene is the same as the initial view controller. The scene that you see on the canvas is named Hello World View Controller because it is managed by the Hello World View Controller object. The Hello World View Controller scene consists of a few items that are displayed in the Xcode outline view, which is the pane that appears between the canvas and the Project Navigator. Right now, the view controller consists of the following items: a first responder placeholder object, represented by an orange cube. The first responder is a dynamic placeholder that represents the object that should be the first to receive various events while the app is running. These events include editing focus events, such as tapping a text field to bring up the keyboard, motion events, such as shaking the device, and action messages, such as the message a button sends when the user taps it, among others. You won't be doing anything with the first responder in this tutorial. The Hello World View Controller object, represented by a pale rectangle inside a yellow sphere. When a storyboard loads a scene, it creates an instance of the View Controller class that manages the scene. A view, which is listed below the View Controller. To reveal this view, in the outline view, you might have to open the disclosure triangle next to Hello World View Controller. The white background of this view is what you saw when you ran the app in Simulator. The area below the scene on the canvas is called the scene dock. Right now, the scene dock displays the view controller's name, that is, Hello World View Controller. At other times, the scene dock can contain the icons that represent the first responder and the view controller object. As you learned earlier, a view controller is responsible for managing one scene, which represents one area of content. The content that you see in this area